Hi, I quit my job as a professor. If you're a current or a recovering academic, a grad student, someone interested in getting a job in tech or specifically in user experience research, I think my channel might be of some help to you. At bare minimum, you can learn from and avoid some of the mistakes that I made as I transitioned out of academia and into industry. Hi, my name is Matt. People used to call me Dr. Hale or Professor Hale, but now in my new job, I just go by Matt, which I prefer. The whole title thing never quite sat right with me. So why did I leave my job? Well, that answer needs some context first, so let me just start with that. I'm from a working class background from rural Kentucky. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I was raised in an evangelical fundamentalist household that held a lot of conspiratorial beliefs about the government, education, especially higher education. I developed my critical thinking skills and a political consciousness to boot. I do well, I get a master's, and I go straight through to the PhD, eventually landing on a double PhD. Then, December 2018, I earned my doctorate from Indiana University. Well, about 5 months prior to that, I start my first tenure track job as an assistant professor at Austin Peay State University in Clarksville, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. If you're an academic or a grad student, you know how unlikely it is to land a tenure track job. There are far too few jobs, way too many highly qualified candidates. The academic job market, especially in the humanities and social sciences, is brutal. It's incredibly rare to land a job straight out of grad school, let alone one before defending your dissertation. So I felt proud of myself for once. So great, I have achieved my dream. I can theoretically spend the rest of my life doing the whole professor thing until I die, but that wasn't the case. Despite having my terminal degree, years of teaching experience, multiple publications, international grants, technical skills in media production, and having earned something like 30 awards as a grad student, my dream job only paid about $50,000 a year. I cleared something around 40. Now, compared to the paltry graduate student stipend that I had somehow survived on for years, it was an improvement. Same goes for my family's income growing up. The average household income from my hometown as of 2022 is $30,000 a year. So again, by comparison, I was doing really well. I was doing well enough. I had jumped up a rung or two on the socioeconomic ladder, just barely inching it into the middle class. But I had always imagined that being a college professor would afford one not only a measure of social prestige, what a cool and meaningful job after all, but that it would also, pay pretty well. The fact of the matter is most graduate students won't become college professors. You're way more likely to get a contingent adjunct job that pays next to nothing. You'll live contract to contract, cobbling together courses to make ends meet. You'll constantly have the dream of a tenure track job offer just sort of carrot dangled before you, but it's highly unlikely that you're going to get it. If you've never read Lauren Berlant's book, Cruel Optimism, pause this video, go to Amazon, search Cruel Optimism, do the look inside feature, and read the first sentence. This sentence will hurt, but it might be a helpful tool for unlocking a better future for yourself down the road. It helped me at least. Anyway, just to be a complete realist downer here, even if you do land that impossible to get tenure track job, the vast majority of scholars and educators who become tenure track faculty, they don't do that at Ivy League institutions or elite private liberal arts colleges or schools with big brand power. Nope. Most workers in higher ed end up grinding away, grading papers, answering emails, being on unpaid committee after committee, volunteering on weeknights and weekends, teaching too many students across too many classes. They are overworked and underpaid. That's where I found myself. I didn't love where I lived. I worked too much, and that tends to happen when you view your job as a calling and not just an occupation, and I didn't get paid enough. And all of these problems were compounded by the pandemic. 2020 wasn't all bad for me, though. I started making online video content for my students. I hated the idea of teaching using the same exact techniques that I would use in a face-to-face class in an online context, like Zoom, for example. From 2020 well into 2022, I made over 100 edited video lectures, basically one a week. And that meant that I was working nonstop to teach my students in the way that I felt that they deserved. For the amount of money and debt that they were going into, they deserved it. My content was getting some traction, I was growing a small audience and getting some views, and other academics seemed to notice and be impressed by my work. So I decided maybe go back on the academic job market. I applied to literally hundreds of jobs. I got rejected by most of them. I was a finalist for several positions, a few just outright ghosted me, and eventually, long story short, I landed a job in Detroit, Michigan. So Victoria, my girlfriend, and I and our dog moved to Michigan, and I think to myself, okay, Somehow I landed a second tenure track job. Now I'm earning $70,000 a year, so great. I get a second chance at my dream job and I get paid more for doing it. So this should be awesome.
1 hour later.
But it wasn't awesome. That job got really tiring and very depressing really quickly. My office was literally falling apart. I couldn't get equipment that I needed to do my job. No one knew what was going on. I loved my students, but I just was working myself to death at an institution where I couldn't see a future for myself. A bit disenfranchised with my career, I started doing research on UX research and jobs in industry, particularly in technology. For a few months there, I really wrestled with the idea of leaving academia. I couldn't really comprehend not being a professor anymore or an educator. I couldn't imagine not working with students, despite the fact that the job was really high stress, but not really high pay. So I translated my CV into a resume. That took some work. I read every book I could get my hands on. I'm going to make videos about both of those two topics later down the road. I got on LinkedIn, started networking, but I was still honestly on the fence. Then, an inflection point. Spring break 2022. While my colleagues and students took vacations, I worked 10, 12-hour days to renovate two really dusty abandoned offices that were next to mine on campus. I'd been told by my chair that I had the all clear. I wanted to transform these unused spaces into high-quality social media labs for our students. I'll link the video if you're interested in one of these two corners to give that a look. I painted the rooms. I paid for all of the paint rollers, adhesives, mats, tarps, paint, all of that. Paid for all of that out of pocket. I installed video and audio equipment. I moved tables, installed lights. I prepped those rooms. And one day, again, during my spring break in which I should have been resting and spending time with my family, an administrator came in and they spoke to me in a very belittling and demeaning way. That was a really important moment. I didn't enjoy it, but everything just sort of suddenly clicked. This was the job. Shortly thereafter, I stopped posting weekly video lectures on YouTube. I just did the bare minimum for my job. I taught, I supported my students, and then I spent every single waking moment consuming any and everything I could on UX research. I applied to jobs. After about 30, maybe 60 days, I not only had made it through several rounds of interviews at a few well-known companies, but I had a few offers on the table. All of them had better benefits than my current job. All were paying above 6 figures. I did the math. I would have had to have worked at my first tenure track job for something like 30 plus years to pass 6 figures. And that second job would have taken years as well. But honestly, the work environment was kind of toxic. During one of my first meetings with an administrator, I was basically told to make alliances and to avoid making enemies to ensure that my application for tenure and promotion wouldn't be derailed. It seemed totally wild to me. This person made the job sound like it was a political maneuvering, a backstabbing of a Westeros. That kind of attitude and talk was just very bizarre to me, especially when you're like getting onboarded. Anyway, all of the user research jobs that I was looking at were remote. So for the first time since I started my undergraduate degree, I could choose where I wanted to live rather than having to chase institutions. So yeah, I left my dream job and I am incredibly happy that I did. I take weekends off now. I kid you not, I had to leave sticky notes around the house reminding myself not to work and to just relax on weekends. I was so used to the publish or perish, work is life mentality of higher ed that I didn't realize that I was addicted to work. Now, is tech perfect? No. No job or field is, but I am happier, healthier, more energized, and more intellectually stimulated than I've been in years. I mean, the reason I got into academia was because I loved learning and teaching, and in the end, so much of being a working professor is attending meetings that could have been emails, dealing with bureaucracy and petty office politics, working yourself to death to publish papers for no compensation in journals that are gatekept and monetized by mega publisher corporations, and taking on additional responsibilities without praise or a raise in compensation or even a cost of living raise. Meanwhile, your institution hires 4 different administrators with vague job descriptions and titles, all of whom earn like 3 or 4 times your salary. So after 6 months in my new job and an 8-month sort of break from making YouTube videos, I'm going to get back at it. I never really stopped loving teaching. I've taught for well over half my life, beginning as a guitar instructor in high school and then an undergraduate peer tutor all the way up to being a professor. And if nothing else, COVID taught me that I really love making educational video content, so I'm going to keep doing that, even if it's just a hobby. I'm going to be posting videos here all about user research, academia, career advice, as well as video essays about pop culture or even tattoo tours. Basically, whatever I feel like making and sharing. So if you made it this far into my ramblings, thank you. That was very kind of you. If you haven't, please like the video, share it, even more so, subscribe to the channel, and if you're so inclined, add me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect. Oh, last thing. If you're new to my channel, it's currently called Digital Pedagogy. Given my career change and the non-SEO friendly nature of that name, I'll be updating the channel name and the look in the not too distant future. So thanks, take care, bye.